to do it again.
Hey, what's going on there? I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Mostly Movies, where we mostly discuss movies.
Mostly.
Yes, I'm Dan Siri. This is my brother John. We're here to talk about a very momentous, very important movie from our childhood, Batman. It came out in 1989, and so did this mask. And it's really a lot hotter than when I was 10, that Halloween. But yeah, we're here to discuss this movie, and a big year for movies in general. Let me just get this thing off me. Oof.
Oh,
that's
it's
better.
Bruce Wayne. What's up?
Yes, this is what Bruce Wayne actually looks like. Let me grab my notes over here. And as you can see, I'm wearing the Scatman shirt. This is a gift from our good buddy Chris Bly, who, the only guy that knows more about movies than we do. Great guy, and he got me this. And we wanted to do this video for a while. The 35th anniversary is coming up. That's right. This movie came out 35 years ago.
35.
And it didn't necessarily... In a way, it did kick off the superhero genre, because I know Superman came out in 1978. Superman is one of my 3 favorite films of all time. It's great, the music and all that. But that didn't really kickstart the comic book movie. There was attempts in the 80s, but then when Batman came out, that was when we got really serious about them trying to make these movies and these comic book films and things like that. And then we had like Dick Tracy, The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
We had a lot of real
Good
offbeat
movies.
ones. They were good. Dick Tracy's
I
a
still
great
love them.
film. Yeah.
I think Madonna never looked hotter.
Oh, she was
Just
great.
looked
She
so
was.
good.
That was the movie that
Al
people
Pacino's
said,
great.
yeah, she's
just a great cast. In
Oh, what a performance by Pacino.
And I like that retro look. You know.
Yes. And again, one of those movies, one of the last movies where it was all done for real. Because as you get to the mid and late 90s, that's when they started to have digital backgrounds and things like that. Even like from Batman Returns to Batman Forever, you could see there's an uptick in like digital effects and the beginning of that stuff. But let's talk about 1989. We had a lot of movies this year. UHF, The Abyss, Bill and Ted, Henry V, Say Anything. Great movie. Uncle Buck, an okay movie. 3 Fugitives.
Okay.
Glory is great. Field of Dreams, Born on the 4th of July, Casualties of War, Lean on Me. I'm just rattling off some names here. True Believer, My Left Foot. And then we had the birth of the independent films. Now again, much like there was some independent films in the mid to early 80s, but in 1989 was a big year for independent film. You had Do the Right Thing, Roger and Me, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. And whether you like the movie, I mean, I'm kind of mixed on all 3 of those, but I appreciate what they did for a lot of filmmakers trying to make their first movies. And then there was sequels, which I have some here. Lethal Weapon 2, Ghostbusters 2, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Star Trek 5, Back to the Future 2, License to Kill, Halloween 5, Jason Takes Manhattan, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, Sleepaway Camp 3, Toxic Avenger 2 and 3, Christmas Vacation,
Best.
Flesh Gordon versus the Cosmic Cheerleaders. We won't talk about that one at all.
Oh, Flesh Gordon.
Flesh Gordon, yes, but it was a sequel to the original Flesh Gordon. 2 films that I cannot recommend on this channel. Whether maybe I saw them, maybe I didn't. Karate Kid 3, which was a major disappointment. This was not just the year of sequels. This was the year of the disappointing sequel. This was the year it's like, yeah, we're not going to give you Temple of Doom. The best we could do is Last Crusade. We're not going to give you Ghostbusters. We're not going to give you Star Trek 3 or 2. We're going to give you Star Trek 5, the final.
It does have some good lines in it, but
It has some of the best moments in Star Trek. It has a beautiful soundtrack by Jerry Goldsmith, but...
And Last Crusade, I've grown to like over the years.
Yes.
Because I think out of all the impressions I do, I think Sean Connery is the last
Should have
Crusade.
mailed it to the Marx Brothers.
Yeah, that's my favorite line.
Yeah. Take
I
it
should
easy.
have mailed it to the Marx.
That part's cool. The middle of that movie is great. The ending is whatever. That's the thing with Crystal Skull, Dial of Destiny, and even Last Crusade. The endings are kind of like, meh. Like the ending of Temple of Doom, that brother's cutting the bridge down. Like, that's pretty hardcore. This one, it's like you gotta jump off a lion's head or something like that. So, you know, don't give Crystal Skull too much grief, or even the other one. And there was also Barbarian Queen.
We won't talk about that.
Barbarian. This was a movie that you can watch it on a website that rhymes with to Rube. It rhymes with that, but there's a certain movie called Barbarian Queen 2, The Empress Strikes Back. I was looking up every bad sequel I could find.
Okay.
It's
It's
not.
a lot of sequels.
Can't recommend it.
But it was just cool that, like, in that summer where you could go, you could see Batman, which was the first of the Batman movies. Well, if you count the Adam West in 1966. But oh, good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. It was the first of the Batman movies, and so like if you look at the movies in '89, there was so many sequels. Like you could just go into one movie theater, see Ghostbusters 2, you could see Last Crusade, you could see so many different sequels. I remember walking out of Ghostbusters 2 and seeing a poster for UHF with Weird Al, and I was so glad that Weird Al was finally in a movie, and I'm like, yay!
And to my life, I'll never understand why we didn't see that movie in theaters. UHF. We just didn't. We didn't go to see like a ton of movies. Certain movies we saw more than once. Not Star Trek 5. We only saw that one time, and that was enough. But I think I saw Ghostbusters 2 twice. I didn't see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids because it was either like, well, we could go see Ghostbusters 2 or we could see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And I'm sorry, I want to see Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
And I ended up seeing Batman 3 times. We're going to get to that in a minute. Our first times watching it. The biggest movie of '89, one of the biggest movies in years, because again, there was a few light years in the late '80s. After like Back to the Future and The Goonies, that summer of '85, and then like next year you had movies that were not really for us.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't go see The Fly or Aliens. Even Top Gun, which we did see in the movies, was more of an adult movie. It wasn't really like a Goonies or a Back to the Future or something like that.
Jeff Goldblum in the
Yeah. It wasn't really. And then in '87, it was again, there wasn't really much for us to see.
Yeah.
If you were
We see
older,
later, like Predator.
yeah, RoboCop is one of my favorite movies, which I did watch way too young. I think I was about 9. I love this movie
Remember,
so
it was the 4th
much.
of July we were watching that.
We watched it on the 4th of July. Our buddy Pete brought it over, the tape. And you guys were trying to keep me out of the room, and I was just kind of in the background, like watching this movie, like out of the corner. And I'm like, this movie is so cool. I can't believe it. RoboCop. I'd buy that for $1. We got to do a video
I'd buy
on
that
that.
for $1.
I have the Arrow 4K. Oh, man. It's great. And on Tubi, if you're interested in RoboCop, watch RoboDoc. It's a pretty interesting documentary on the making of RoboCop. A lot of stories I've heard before, some I didn't know. '88, there wasn't really that much. I mean, there was Roger Rabbit, but even Roger Rabbit was really kind of like, it was a kid's movie, but it wasn't really a kid's movie. In the '80s, there was really no such thing as an all-out kids movie.
Yeah.
There was kids movies, but there was things in them that you're like, oh, this is a little strange, or I feel a little weird about this. But Roger Rabbit's all right. And then a year later, this movie comes out, and it's so hyped. The hype machine was the biggest, up until that time, the biggest that had ever been done. I think the only thing that trumped it...
Your whole immersed in it.
Yeah, the only thing that was bigger than that was probably Phantom Menace, years later.
Yeah.
But originally, this movie was in development a lot in the 80s. Do you know who they originally wanted at one point for Batman?
I heard there was one that Ivan Reitman was working on, speaking of Ghostbusters, and then Bill Murray.
Bill Murray as Batman.
As Batman. I don't know about that.
That would have been very strange, but he's a good dramatic actor too, so I think he could have pulled it off. It's sort of like James Bond, but the American equivalent, because James Bond is always a British guy. It's always a big deal. Batman is sort of like our version of James Bond, because it's like only a few guys have done it.
That's another thing that attracted me to this movie when I first saw it. Mm-hmm. Batman has all the gadgets, but I says one that he has extra over James Bond is that he dresses up as a bat. So it's like,
it's a lot cooler, and he has cooler villains. I'm sorry,
gadgets. To me, that was one of the big takeaways.
Bond has better ladies, but that's different. Batman ain't about that life. It's about snuffing fools. It's not about getting the girl. All the girls leave Batman.
Being in the man cave, and
he couldn't keep any of them around.
She's wonderful, isn't she, Alfred?
Yeah.
I was listening
Alfred
to
didn't say that. Batman's?
Oh, when
get the funk up.
Get the funk up!
When we
he
saw
says
that.
Funk. F-U-N-K.
F-U-N-K.
Get the funk up!
So, like, when something weird happens, like, people say, get the blank out. We say G-T-F-U. G-T, get the funk up. So,
yeah.
That's kind of our alternative.
Or sometimes when we see something, we say, get the funk up, Batman. It's like, get the funk out of here.
Yeah.
F-U-N-K.
No funk. But then they decided they were first
We'll talk about the
developing
Batmans later.
It was more comical. It was more based on, because really the only successful Batman in live action was the Adam West show from the 60s, which we hold near and dear. I love that show. but they wanted to make something more serious because they basically said, look, we got to do something really, really serious with this property. And I think what happened was the big catalyst for that was The Dark Knight Returns. Because when that book came out, it was so revolutionary. In 1980, that mask is making my whole face itchy, God knows.
Oh, no.
It's been sitting there since like 90. But, but like, Dark Knight... Yeah. Tell me something.
Look, I have my green Joker pen.
Oh, gosh.
Today, so
but, no, the thing was, it was like, what the hell was I talking about? This is going to happen a lot.
When it hit, it was just, everywhere.
Dark Knight Returns. That's what I was talking about.
Oh, Dark Knight Returns, yeah.
That it was a darker story, and it was a great story, too. It's not just that it was dark. It was a very well-written, beautiful book. What would Batman be like in the 80s? Say he started fighting crime in 1939, and it's 50 years later, and he's almost 80 years old. He's like 79, basically, because Batman's always 29. That's the joke. And what would it be like years later if he was still fighting crime as an old man?
Yeah.
And Dark Knight Returns is a great book, and that's what got the writers to be more serious. And when Tim Burton came on, they had Sam Hamm was one of the original writers, and then one of his usual writers, Warren Scarron or something like that, Daniel Waters, I think, one of his guys that he always used, became the writer on Batman. And they wanted to still have fun, but they still wanted to make it more dark and more serious. And Batman was not going to be wearing blue and gray. He was going to be wearing all black. But, Tim Burton had done 2 movies for Warner Brothers, but when he did this movie, it was a little controversial, not so much for him. It was for the choice of Batman.
Yeah.
Michael?
And with the talking about the black and yellow, it became so iconic, with Batman. Now, in the comic book, people have said over the years, they're like, oh, he wears blue and gray because those were the colors of the Civil War, the North and the South.
Civil War within himself.
He's like a civil war within himself. But really, I think what it was is that when you're doing a comic book and the panel is like, it's the night sky and everything like that, if you just give him a black outfit and stuff, it's not really going to come across like, on the pages. So it was sort of like the bluish would come out
Dark
more.
blue.
So, but who knew that black and yellow was black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Anyway, sorry.
But the thing that really sold everybody was that Jack Nicholson was the Joker. Now, at first they couldn't get him. They had Robin Williams for a little bit, but I think they offered it to Robin Williams to get Jack to do it because he's like, well, I don't want him upstaging me.
Yeah.
So then he agreed and he played, but nobody was really sold until the trailer came out. The first trailer for this movie blew a lot of people's minds. We saw it, I think it was on Entertainment Tonight or something, because, again, we didn't go to a lot of movies as kids, because, even back then it was expensive for a family of 6. There was 6 of us. So we didn't all go to the movies that much, but we saw it on TV, and that began the hype machine, the T-shirts, toys. There was a video game, an arcade, which is great. We got to play that sometime. The NES Batman game came out in Christmas of '89, the same Christmas that we got the Nintendo, and a Batmobile. That was a good year.
Batmobile, yeah.
Very good year. I just remember playing with the Batmobile and then just playing Mega Man 2 for like a couple hours.
Speaking of, my wife got me a model for the Batmobile, and I had to put it together. I'm going to show you guys a little bit.
Oh,
by the way, I have a
That's a Star Wars lunchbox.
It's
Another brand.
But,
It's not...
another brand, but I got my Batman figure.
Yeah. And you have your VHS?
Yes.
I have my VHS right here. This is from 1989.
Put it together.
And we just watched these 2 times and not watched the sequels.
And that's the thing, like, with one of the amazing things with Batman on VHS.
Yeah, the Batman
cards.
cards.
I gotta put it together now.
These are some Bat cards that I have here. These are in good shape, pretty much.
And my wife also got me the Batwing.
Wow.
So
I gotta come over and put
together.
that together with you.
We got the models. But anyway, what I was going to say about the VHS, the thing about the VHS with this was what was amazing. I remember, because remember when movies used to be out for like 3 months? This was one of those things where it was out from June to about September. And I remember reading in the newspaper that they were having, it was going to be out in October. And I'm like, a month from now? It's going to be, that was the big thing. And they're like, I was reading it in September newspaper.
Yeah, but early November, I think.
Maybe early November. But I thought it said like October. And I was like, in a month from now, you got to remember back in those days, way back in the 80s,
took a
back in
year.
those days, it took years sometimes for certain movies. Like Star Wars, look at Return of the Jedi. I just showed you Return of the Jedi lunchbox. That
Took 3
Return of
years.
the Jedi came out in '83. Came out in '86.
Everything took
on VHS.
at least a year to come out. And when it came out, because back then video was a rental industry, not a sales industry, they would charge it $80, $100 a tape. And even if you wanted cartoons like G.I. Joe, they had one of the miniseries of G.I. Joe, The Mass Device, 5 episodes, $30 it was when it first came out. That's a lot of money, especially since rentals were like $3, $4 maybe. Yeah. That's why a lot of movies that come out in certain years, it feels like it comes out a year later. Like for some reason, Temple of Doom I think of as 1985 because it didn't come out in video till 85, and that's why I saw that movie, Gremlins, and many others. Back to the Future I didn't see till video in 1986. But we were lucky to see the Goonies in theaters when it first came out.
Yeah.
All my friends hate me because of that, because they're like, "Why did you see the Goonies for?" We were going to see Back to the Future, and then a friend of the family says, "No, your kids are younger; they'll be bored. Take them to the Goonies." And we saw.
Somebody was watching The Sandlot
awesome.
the other day, and Sandlot is a cute movie and everything.
It's
like
no
that.
Goonies.
Some people
Don't
love
kid
it.
yourself.
Like it's like their favorite movie. And it's a good movie.
Ugh.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away from Sandlot.
That's the people that
I'm
are born
I grew
like
up with like Goonies, and I saw Temple of Doom on the big screen. Like, so I'm like seeing like,
I was
you know, my
little
brother
too
Tom
young.
was trying to cover my eyes like during the heart scene.
Yeah, but you
So-
were 7. That wasn't so bad. I would have been 5. I saw it on video.
I think Ghostbusters we saw in the big
scared the
screen, too,
crap
so.
out of me.
Dad and
Ghostbusters
Tom.
was a little scary too. I saw that on video in '85. I was 6. Scary.
Yep.
But the hype machine, and one of the things that we used to have, and I don't have any,
Get back to
unfortunately, was buttons. They used to have, remember, people
Buttons,
had big buttons
yes.
with Batman. It looked like the guy was wearing a plate. When I walked up to him, it was a big Batman
I miss
button.
that type. Like, you know, when people wear the jean jackets and have the buttons.
Have
all
the
over
buttons, because they couldn't sew. You know, if we were a little,
They
old-
couldn't sew.
if we were a little older, we would have had buttons everywhere.
them. Knitting.
But the first
Knitting.
time,
Knitting.
what's the first time you saw this movie?
Oh, the first time was June 23rd, 1989, in the Amboy, opening day. So when we went to there, and it was sort of like seeing it in Gotham. This is North Jersey, Amboy Theaters.
Sayreville, son.
yeah, it's not. You know, I think it's still a little bit.
It was bad
You know.
then. It doesn't
Yeah, a little
exist
bit,
anymore. It's closed. It closed in
The
2005.
Amboy Theater, but I remember just the whole. It was a packed theater, and I remember
They were into
during the opening scene, people were still like shuffling their way in. So we're watching the opening scene, and I guess people were thinking like.
I'm doing the
I
song
had
from
no-
the beginning of the movie. The Prince song. I can see. And that's weird when the
Oh, really? I
prostitute
didn't
like
even
accosts
notice
the
that.
kid and says, "Hey, honey, that's weird."
Yeah,
that
it's
was
weird.
freaking weird.
But
movie.
you know what's interesting is, you know, they have that couple in the beginning with the child, and people were thinking that was going to be Bruce Wayne, and,
Yeah.
and you know, and then they were doing it. But then they're, of course, they switched it up on you, and then it's sort of showing like Bruce Wayne doing
right.
something, you know, Batman doing something that, you know, he's now he's there fighting crime and taking care of, you know, a family and things like that. Although he goes really after the criminals after they, you know, try to mug them. But anyway, I guess like he's trying to get free publicity. Tell all your friends about me, you know. I'm Batman.
Yeah.
But anyway, but to me, the thing about Batman and why this movie was so iconic for me, again, seeing it on opening day in like a Gotham type city, and a bustling theater. I mean, I think you could still smoke in the theaters back then. So it was like smoky theater. Like if you look at
remember that.
you know, Batman '89, there's a lot of smoky scenes and stuff. But you know, just smoke all around. You know, like smoke machines everywhere.
Today would be hipsters vaping. In the back.
Yeah, vaping.
I'm trying to watch the crappy Flash movie and people are vaping down there.
And the thing is, like, what I knew from Batman before that, we watched the Super Friends with our brother Tom. We knew, you know, Batman and Scooby-Doo teaming up. You know, Adam West Batman, we may have seen a couple episodes. Then I got really into the Batman, you know, Adam West show after it because I wanted to eat up everything that was Batman, you know. And then they had, of course, the great animated series came later. We'll get to that later. But the thing about Batman that the thing about Batman '89, and we'll talk about Chris Nolan trilogy later, and I love, you know, what he did with Batman and everything like that. And you could argue, and you might win the argument that, you know, those movies are better written, better directed, better acted, whatever. But the thing is, with Batman '89, is that what Tim Burton did with this, it was sort of like a big budget art film in the sense that he created iconic images. Like that, when Jack Nicholson is reaching his hand and you see the Joker card, or you know, you see the cards coming up and he's in Axis Chemicals and he's reaching his hand out, it's an iconic image. You know, the Batwing going up to the moon, that's an iconic image. You know, the scene when he's like, mirror, you know, it's like, there are so many, this is good screenwriting because it's like every scene that you have to write, you're like, how can I make the best possible scene that I can make?
Yes.
And every scene, and to me, for like we talked about the gadgets, like James Bond, the two biggest takeaways of Batman 89, why I got so into it, because I saw this at the perfect age. I was 11 years old, and in a few weeks I was going to be 12. I saw it at the perfect age, and what happened was I saw this movie, and it was sort of like, you know, I was born the year the original Star Wars came out. Okay, yeah, I'm aging myself, I know. I was born the year the original Star Wars came out, and I saw Empire Strikes Back, you know, I was 3 years old, but I saw it in the theater. But it's like, I didn't really, you know, and I love Star Wars, it's one of my favorite things, but the thing about Batman is, you know, when I saw Batman, I said, this is almost like my Star Wars, that I said, and what was so great about it was that it opened me up to like a whole new world. Whereas like now I'm going to read the comic and I'm going to go back and read some great stories in the late 80s and the early 90s. And then I sort of like, you know, tapped out around the comic book probably before the Bane stuff in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
Because by that time the animated series was on. And as much as I love comic books, I'm more of a movie TV guy.
Yeah,
so,
the animated
you know, like
series
I was
great.
just eating it up. I just loved it. And it just really, I'll just go off just for one more minute. But the thing about what was so crucial, because I started at a great time when I was 11, going into my 12th year, it just opened up this whole world of Batman to me. So like, it's more than just a movie. Make yourself more than just a man. It's more than just a movie for me because I was a big heavyset kid in junior high school. And when I was graduating junior high school, my godbrother Pete gave me his weight bench. And I started working out, and I was working out in my basement, and it felt like the Batcave. And I you know, from like my junior high school senior year, there too, junior high school, that summer of when I graduated in 8th grade, and then went into freshman year in a new high school, everything, you know, my friends were like, John, I lost like 30 pounds that summer because I was working out, I was weight training.
And we were reading Batman comics. And
we were reading Batman comics, and it's like, you know, I felt like I saw what Batman did. He took the worst pain of his life, you know, seeing his parents gunned down in front of him. Yeah. And it changed me in a way that I says, if he could take the worst moment of his life and turn that into a mission of his, now I have something to do for, I could protect other families, I could fight for other families, and I could, you know, fight crime and everything like that. And I'll just say this one last thing, and then we'll go back to the movie. The thing about it, that's why I said it's more than just a movie, because it has these iconic moments, and the music. To me, the gadgets, the Batmobile, the Batwing, the music, it fills this whole world. And the last thing I'll say about that is that it really like inspired me to like pursue excellence. And if you look at that original Batman comic by Bob Kane and Bill Finger, they have, you know, comic books back then were written almost like a comic strip. News panels. And you look at all the panels, just look at that front page. His parents get shot in the first panel. Then they're showing his time of mourning. Then he's at their grave basically saying he wants to use this as his, you know, rally cry, this mission in life. And he turns his life around. And then each panel is like, he's studying chemistry. He's studying science, chemistry, and art. He's studying chemistry. He's working out. He's working in gymnastics. You can actually look on the internet. They actually have something called Batman Workout. Now, definitely pace yourself. Don't do it like, you know, it's like one of the things is like, I mean, other than gymnastics, one of the things is like 5 sets of 50 crunches. I'm like, no. I was at the time I used to be like 3 sets of 30 crunches, but 5 sets of 50, that's a little bit. That's a little bit much.
We don't endorse the Batman workout on here. You could do the Alfred Pennyworth, which is a little easier.
And the last thing I'll say about Batman's influence, to me, like personally, and I think to a lot of people of our culture, is that the thing about Batman is that, you know, people say Batman doesn't have a superpower. Like, I grew up in the 80s and people would say, oh, you know, Wolverine, and I like Wolverine too and stuff. They're like, Wolverine, he has the healing factor, he has this, he can fight. I'm like, yeah, but I says the thing about Batman is, I finally realized a few months ago, I says, this is his superpower. His superpower is his will. Because they say it in Batman Begins, he says, the training is nothing. The will is everything. And then I realized that is his superpower. That's Batman's superpower. His will, his way of how he turn the tables on it. He says,
Yeah.
I'll take the worst moment in my life
And turn it into something.
and turn it into something good that I could fight crime. I'll get off my soapbox, but I'm saying that's why a movie is more than just dialogue. A movie is more than just, you know, plot scenes and pacing and this and that. It's more than that. And that's why with Batman 89 is one of those movies. Like, you look at not only just the merchandising and stuff around it, but what that movie means to you personally.
Yeah.
And it just hit me at the right time.
To be honest, there was something it hit differently in 1989. Like the first time I saw it, I didn't go with you guys the first night. You went with Tommy and Lisa. I went to see Ghostbusters 2 with my mom and dad. Like we all went to the theater together. You guys went there. And I'm sitting through Ghostbusters 2, and I think it was the second. Makes it even worse. It was like the second time I'm sitting through Ghostbusters 2, and I'm just, why didn't I not go to see Batman? I think maybe Batman was sold out or something. We couldn't sit together.
I don't know if it would be too scary.
But I don't think they saw Ghostbusters 2 yet, so they're like, oh, we'll see Ghostbusters and that. But I think they were worried that it was PG-13. They were worried about it being too intense, but it was not that. Although watching it now, you're like, wow, this does a lot for a PG-13. This is pretty violent.
Yeah.
Like when he kills Antoine Rotelli, the Joker basically shakes his hand. He burns the guy to death. There's like
I won't say the other word.
I'm glad you're dead. But like that whole scene is really brutal. He totally burns the guy alive while they're all just sitting there at the table.
I got a live one here.
That was messed up, man. That was really.
Ooh, there'll be a hard time. The old town tonight.
Okay, but the first time I saw this movie was with I was in summer school that year, and what was one of our trips? We all went to see Batman. I'm like, this movie is amazing. Like you guys told me how cool it was. And we had the comic book and everything, so I had an idea. But when you see it in the theater, especially when it first came out, it was something new. Man, it was amazing. And then I saw it a couple of other times. There was a thing of the Ziegfeld. They did a superhero trilogy where they showed Batman, then they showed Spider-Man, and then it was 2007. And then they ended it with the original Superman, which was like huge. Everybody was there. Batman was in the morning, so it didn't have a big crowd. But it was still cool to see it in the theater again. I saw it 3 times the summer of '89. And then the best time I saw it was actually earlier this year. I went to the PAC Center in Newark, and a lot of people say Newark is the inspiration for Gotham City in a lot of ways because it's close to Manhattan, and it's not quite Metropolis, which is Manhattan, but it's close by. And
someone had said somewhere, one of my friends was
that
saying,
Batman is from New Jersey.
Batman's in New Jersey,
just like Jason Voorhees and Chucky. But
actually, one funny postscript to that, and we'll get right back to this. I'm sorry, with Danny and me, it's
I got to wrap this up pretty soon too.
Okay, we'll wrap it up. But
it's going to be a little shorter this time, folks. We don't want to break the universe like we did last time.
Well, Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito are both from New Jersey, and when I heard that Jack Nicholson was on the set of Batman Returns, I was like, he was like meeting Burton, hanging out with Burton and DeVito. Yeah. But I was like, oh man, is he going to be in the movie? But looking back after all these years, I was saying, oh man, it's a shame that they killed off his character. But then I said, you know what?
One and done.
Yeah, you know what? It stands alone as a movie, beginning, middle, and end. And I think you could take Batman '89, parts of Batman Returns, and then the
other ones,
the Batman animated series.
Yeah,
you have like 4 or 5 seasons of that. Take that. It's like take Batman '89 parts. Like I love the Michelle Pfeiffer stuff and Batman Returns. We'll talk about it another time, but. You take that, you take the animated series, and you're good to go. You know
who's originally supposed to play Vicky Vale? This is off topic, and they filmed a lot of scenes with her. Sean Young.
Vicky Vale.
Sean Young, but she she got hurt when they had the scene with horseback riding, and unfortunately, they recast it with Kim Basinger, which was a crummy thing to do, but they had to make a schedule, and it was a very unfortunate thing because I do like Sean Young a lot as an actress. I think she's great. And I love her because she's in Blade Runner, one of my favorite movies. She was great in Dune. And by the way, I just saw Dune 2. I had seen Dune 1, which was okay. I saw Dune 2 by Denis Villeneuve. Garbage. It was boring. It was depressing. And the ending was so dark. I'm like, I got to read the book again. I haven't read the book since I'm a teenager. I'm like, I don't remember it ending this dark. This is real depressing. Then I started reading the other books just recently. I read Dune Messiah, which was awful. Children of Dune is pretty bad, too. After I'm done listening to
Children of the Corn.
After I'm done listening to the audiobook of Children of Dune, I think I'm good with Dune. I'm not going to read the other 3 books.
Yeah.
God, Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Dune. No. No, it was one story that was great. And I think Denis Villeneuve did not do as good a job as David Lynch. And a lot of people say that I'm crazy for that. But if you watch the Lynch version, he tells you the whole story in 2 hours and 20 minutes, and you could kind of understand it as much as you can. And if you go on YouTube and watch the Spice Diver cut of Dune, the David Lynch film, where they reconstruct it from all the cut scenes, it is the best version of Dune that's ever been put to film. And I give David Lynch all the credit in the world for doing the impossible. Denis Villeneuve had all this money and all this time. He had 5 hours to tell his story, and it was dull. It didn't work. And I know he's supposedly critic-proof, just like Chris Nolan, even though the last Chris Nolan movie I really liked was Inception. And everything since then has been meh. But it all gets 4 stars. It gets nominated for Best Picture, and all the critics say it's the greatest thing ever. And all the audiences say it's the greatest thing ever. Because you know what the problem is with a lot of these critics and audiences today? Is that they're just bandwagoners. Like, they all hate something, or they all agree to love something, and the audience has to love it too. And like, the only time the audience disagrees if it's a Star Wars movie, because they all got to show how much they hate Star Wars. But that's a whole other video, which we won't get into. The home video comes out November of '89.
Hold on one second. I just want to touch on the Vicky Vale thing.
Yeah.
I was listening to the Bat Dance the other day to prepare for this, and there's a scene where it's like,
That's your
"Stop
research?
the press. Who is that?" Yeah, that was my research for this video. And "Stop the press. Who is that?" Vicky Vale. Vicky Vale.
Yeah.
And so basically, they had the Vicky Vale scene, and then
Sampling was a new thing in '89, so
Yeah.
there was a lot of
It was a
sampling.
big thing for '89. So like they had
what days
was it
we
Michael
live in.
Michael Keaton was like she's great, isn't she, Alfred? Yeah. And you hear Prince saying, "Ooh yeah, ooh yeah."
Really?
I like to bust that body.
No, he
Ooh,
didn't
yeah.
say that.
Ooh yeah, and I think he did.
John,
really,
we
but I was
can't
like,
say
"Ooh,
this.
bust that."
This is
no.
too
He said,
hot
"I want to
for
bust that
most
body." But
movies.
check this out. This is the funniest thing. So he
This
says,
is not in my notes, by the way.
"You know that scene at the end of the movie when he's like, we could work this out, but." I got to go out there because the Joker's out there. I got to take him down.
I've gotta go to
and okay, yes, you got to go.
No, that's what he
Oh
says.
yeah, I gotta go to work, right? So
I gotta
then
get to
he's
work,
like,
too.
he says, well, it's great how they do it in the song because he says, he's like, I want to bust that body, and then Michael Keaton says, but I can't right now. And I'm like, I really want to hit it and quit it, but
Okay.
can't right now.
Thankfully, that
I got
song was
things
not
going
in the
on,
film.
yeah. Anyway.
The greatest part of that movie, the Prince soundtrack, gets a lot of notice.
Ooh, yeah.
But the best music in that movie, of course, is from Danny Elfman, which is a
the
soundtrack
best.
that I don't think ever gets enough credit. And I was lucky enough when I saw this at the PAC
And you still
Center.
hear it again in the animated series.
Yes, when I saw it at the PAC Center in Newark with a
yeah.
live orchestra. The music, and I love the music. I always appreciated the music, but what he did with this movie musically was just astonishing. Right up there with like John Williams and Star Wars,
definitely,
or
definitely.
James Horner, Jerry Goldsmith for Star Trek. It was really amazing. So when we got the home video of this, I remember we went to pick it up at Palmer Video, 1989. I think it was maybe early November. And it was only $19.99, which we're like, oh my God, a VHS tape that isn't $100 or $90. Like, most of them were expensive because they expect you to rent them. But I remember this movie, Back to the Future 2, Star Trek 5, there was a couple of other ones that the VHS was cheap. And we didn't buy many VHS. Most of the stuff we taped off of TV, which is funny because we have a lot of TV edits of Caddyshack, The Blues Brothers, Tootsie, Back to the Future. Movies that, it's funny. And we remember... when they say a curse word in the movie, they would dub it or they replace it with another word, which is really funny. The one for Tootsie is hilarious. And the RoboCop, what's great about RoboCop is they have the TV version on YouTube. Like on YouTube, you could see the TV version of RoboCop, which is crazy. And there are some DVDs, like Mallrats does this, where they have the TV version. And I think Big Lebowski has some scenes from the TV version on YouTube.
Oh no.
But then
one thing I want to say about the TV version real quick with Jack Nicholson, right when I was turning around 9 and 10, like my dad started showing us the TV versions of certain movies like Godfather, and we got really into it.
Godfather we rented.
But
we saw the full
we rented
thing.
it. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
just
we were
amazing.
11. It was the Italian bar mitzvah. We watched
It was the Italian bar.
because we were in junior high, and all our friends were like talking about their confirmation of their bar mitzvah, but we're Protestants, so we didn't go with any of that. So, like, we had the Italian bar mitzvah where we rented in 1 week. We watched Godfather 1, Godfather 2, like uncut,
Yeah.
and then we watched Goodfellas. And
yeah.
we were just blown away by those three
Yeah,
movies. Because
amazing.
Dad's like, forget about Godfather 3, we're going to watch Goodfellas. And the only part that really, really disturbed me as a kid was when, and I could deal with all the violence and the shootings and all that. The part that really disturbed me as a kid was when they were finding all the bodies after the Lufthansa heist. For some reason, that like I had bad dreams that
Play this song. The
I had bad
Layla,
dreams
right?
that Layla was playing. Whenever I hear Layla is the love theme from Goodfellas. But I had nightmares that Johnny Roastbeef was going to come out of the Cadillac and kill me. Like I was really afraid of that scene because I was 11. I was a kid when I saw it. But I have no regrets. That movie's the greatest.
But one of the TV movies I saw, it's a great movie. One of the TV movies I saw was, well, not TV movies, but
the TV version of One Flew
Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and that got me into Jack Nicholson. And of course, years later, I had seen, I saw, The Shining and these other stuff. But
Shining. Even on TV, The Shining is scary.
It is still scary
Stuff.
But
I can't
he's
say
just so great here as the Joker. And I don't like to compare the other Jokers. I think each one, because people said Jack
They're
Nicholson
all
was
great
52.
in their own way.
So I looked up the ages. I looked up, now I know Heath Ledger, rest his soul, was 29, I believe, when
29 years old, yeah.
Dark Knight came out. I looked at it because Jack Nicholson was 52. Keaton was 38 when his... Joaquin Phoenix was 45 when he did. Now he's going to be almost. Now he's going to be almost 50. I think he's 49 this year when the new Joker 2 comes out. Each Joker, that's out. I'm always very fair with. I loved Heath Ledger, and obviously Joaquin.
We
Phoenix,
give everyone a chance.
He was going to be great, and he was. And even Jared Leto, I don't bash on him too much because I think he fit within that
movie.
Suicide Squad universe kind of thing. But to me, Jack Nicholson, over the years, and there was a time there when you started getting later into the Batman sequels, and we'll get to that in a second, where you started saying,
My notes are done.
I think with Jack Nicholson, he's very flamboyant as there, and then a lot of people tried to replicate him in comic book movies where they tried to do these over the
Green
top,
Goblin.
like look at Batman Forever, they tried to do like the over the top
No,
thing.
it's not.
And I still actually, I says, it's I saw Batman Returns and then Batman Forever, back to back again, and I was like, I guess preparing for the Batman movie with
The Batman.
Robert Pattinson, which was okay. I
long.
thought it was good. But
You don't want to watch
it's
it
not
again.
as good as the Nolan
It's not
ones,
rewatchable.
it's
good.
only one film so far. I can't judge it.
Yeah, but
to the
it
Nolan
doesn't have a
movies,
great rewatch value because you see it once and you're like, God, that was so long, and it was too much of a ripoff of like Zodiac and Seven, and it just didn't jive with the Riddler. If it was a new villain, it would have made sense, but the Riddler wearing like the mask, he looked like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction.
And once she took off the mask, it sort of like ruined the mystique. It's sort of like Force Awakens when
Yeah.
Kylo Ren took off the mask and he had
he's this ugly
perfect
looking guy.
helmet hair. He had perfect helmet hair. But anyway, but like to me, like with Jack Nicholson, he was a different type of Joker than Heath Ledger. And I like with Heath Ledger, he was doing something more. When I saw an interview with him, he was doing something more like Alex in Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
He was doing something very different from the regular Joker, but sometimes from the Jack Nicholson Joker. But the thing is, and of course Joaquin Phoenix did something different too. But I think what was interesting about it was that with Jack Nicholson, see now sometimes we would see comic book movies and see flamboyant villains. And, there was a time where I grew a little soft on Batman 89. I got really into the animated series and I never went down from that. But there was a time where I got soft on it. But now over the recent years, with a lot of the movies and sequels that come out today, I'm just like, you know what? Batman 89, we had a really
good movie. It was great.
And I says, more than just a movie, it opened the door to the universe of Batman. And that's why,
I think what hurt it was Batman Returns. Half the movie is great. Almost everything with the Penguin doesn't work. It's not tragic. It's not tragic, and it's not funny, and it's just weird in a bad way. And you just leave that whole thing. That whole ending is ridiculous. Like, I still think you could have redeemed that movie if you had a different ending. Just when the Penguin leaves after the press conference, he jumps in the water and swims away. That should have been it. And then just make the ending about Catwoman, who was great, going after Christopher Walken. That stuff was really good. I liked that part of the movie a lot, but then a lot of it I didn't like. It was very different from the first movie. It wasn't really fun. It wasn't really exciting. It was just sort of like, this thing. And then with Batman Forever, I'd like to say it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Yeah.
It was a great time. It was 1995. The mid 90s were awesome. You know, they
And
were
what
just.
about that movie? What about the song that came from? La da da.
Oh God! Don't sing it. We'll get a copyright strike.
Oh no.
But you know what? It did have a pretty good soundtrack. It wasn't a good movie, but you know what? I liked it a little bit when we first saw it because I was like a teenager and
I was graduating high school at the time, so that was the high school year. But
and it was like a cool movie. Like you take your girlfriend to it, and like your friend the girl that you like from high school, and you kind of go see the movie together. It was a good time for us, like in life, the mid '90s.
Mm-hmm.
Then I didn't
It's
realize,
true.
and then I saw the movie on video, and I'm like, this isn't that great, but I never like hated it. And then I saw it a couple of years ago, and I really didn't like it. Like I was really I'm like, this movie really sucks because I'm not in that time. I'm not in 1995 anymore. I'm not a teenager, and this is just really a bad movie. Batman and Robin, I'll attest, I've only seen one time, and the only reason I saw it was because they had the VHS for sale when I worked at Hollywood Video. And a friend of mine who worked there, she's like, you never saw Batman and Robin? How could you not see this terrible movie? I'm like, I never saw it. So she says, I'll buy it.
It took me 20 years.
Ooh,
but
it's rough.
preparing for the Batman,
It is a rough experience. And you know
really
what?
good.
I saw it, and it's not even like a movie. It's just this thing with its images and its sound, but it's garbage. And you know what happened? I finally saw it because she bought it, and she lent it to me. She's like, when you're done with it, give it back to me. And I gave it back to her after I watched it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I said, it's
awful.
rough.
And I have to say, in the third one, Batman Forever, I did like Chris O'Donnell. I mean, he's 30 years old playing a teenager.
The best part of
but
the
I
movie was Robin.
I like Chris O'Donnell as Robin,
kinda
I like that whole Robin story.
Like in Superman 3, the best part of that movie is Smallville. And you're like, why is it that I go to see a Superman movie and the only part of this movie I like is in Smallville, and the rest of it is just really a mess.
That was a mess.
Although Richard Pryor had a few funny scenes in there, like when he's skiing on the building. I like that part. When he says, "Let me tell you something, I can't ski." Like that was a good moment. But
funny movie.
yeah,
But
it's
but
a
just
bad
like,
movie.
They
but
used to
some
make
good
comic
memories.
books like that, children.
Yes.
You've been so spoiled these last 10 years with Marvel and all this other stuff. It's like you've been really spoiled.
We had
with,
to watch some movies.
the MCU and everything over the last 10 years.
Superman
These kids
4, The Quest for Peace. Remember when Superman 4 was out? We went to the theaters, we saw Masters of the Universe. A little tease, because that's going to be an upcoming video.
Yeah.
We watched Masters of the Universe. And the only other choices for movies that weekend were like Superman 4 and Back to the Beach. So I think Mom, Dad, and Lisa went to see Back to the Beach. And then we watched Superman. We didn't see Superman 4. We wanted to see Masters of the Universe, which we were already too old for. But you know what? For the time and you've got it, right? He just carries it around. He just carries movies around.
I just
this
carry
guy.
stuff
I love
around.
it. But he had Masters of the Universe in his little bag there.
In my
But
bag.
you know what it is? Like, it was the best movie on the marquee. Was Masters of the Universe. And it's, for the time and budget, it's not a bad movie.
Not a bad movie.
But then
it's different from the TV show. That's what's so great about Batman.
we got to get to the Nolan movies.
Oh yeah, we'll get to the Nomans. That's what's so great about Batman is that it's different. It's the thing is if you're not into the Tim Burton, Michael Keaton stuff, you have the Chris Nolans. If you don't like this, that the thing is that it started out as a comic book. So people have different iterations. Sometimes you could have a Batman title. That was the one thing when I started collecting Batman comic books in the late 80s, early 90s. I started noticing it's like, well, there's Detective Comics. Then there's The Shadow of the Bat.
They all
then
have their
there's
own personality.
just a regular Batman comic. And then there's this, that, and well, they have like 7 different titles for one character. So that's another thing too. So if you don't like one universe, you could watch something else. I think the thing, and I keep talking about the animated series, to me, I think the thing that captures the perfect tone of Batman,
That first season.
because Batman Returns is way off in tone.
No.
I'm not even going to go into
And
it.
some of the
but it's just
sequels.
way off in tone. Batman 89 captures it really great, I think. But like the dark,
Pretty
but
good,
also
yeah.
with some lightness in it and some laughter and stuff.
But
I think the animated series captures
is
that
the best,
that
especially
real perfectly. I
that
think
first season. After
Yeah.
that, they were still doing pretty good work, but that first season, those first 20-something episodes are like a work of art. It's
Yeah.
like the first season of Star Trek. Like there are okay episodes in 2 and 3, but Star Trek, you watch the first season, it's 30 episodes. 29 of them are awesome. There's maybe like the one I didn't like is Metamorphosis. But the other ones are all the classic Star Trek episodes are in the first season. There's a couple in season 2, like Mirror Mirror and a few others, Amok Time, and season 3 has maybe 1 or 2 that are like iconic. But really, they just had lightning in a bottle with that first season of Batman. So then in 2005, they were talking about Schumacher making another Batman movie that was more serious. Because you think Schumacher is a great director, The Lost Boys and Falling Down. When I heard the guy doing Lost Boys and Falling Down was doing Batman, I was more excited than the guy who did Beetlejuice and Pee-wee's Big Adventures doing Batman. But it didn't turn out right. They blew it. They said they want it lighter and brighter. That was what the studio said. There was a big reaction to Batman Returns. Very angry. Parents were very angry. They were taking kids to this movie. Now the first movie was violent and the first movie was dark. But this movie was, they basically push a beauty queen off of a rooftop and gets crushed on the ground and lights up the Christmas tree with bats flying out. And the penguin's like a pervert. And he's kidnapping kids. And people I took my kid to this movie. What the hell is this?
That's another thing about it.
I had a Happy Meal.
When I was watching it again recently. Now I have a daughter after all these years. I'm watching it now and I'm seeing it through different eyes. But, I'm watching a scene where...
You didn't show it to her, did you?
No.
Poor Emily.
I'm even waiting until
Little
the original Batman.
She's 4 years old and she'll be watching Batman Returns.
She actually really liked Superman character because she saw the Super Pets movie.
You could show her
I was showing her some of the Superman animated.
You could show her maybe the original Superman another year or two.
Yeah, I could probably
She'll be about 6.
That's a bad outfit.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was watching it again and they have the scene at the end where he tries to kidnap the kids. But then if you listen closely, there's a scene where Michael Keaton and Bruce Wayne is like looking through these things and he's saying, oh, well, every time the circus goes to town, there are children
missing. I'm like, that's...
So I'm thinking that I'm saying hopefully they get the kids to work for them in the Triangle Gang. No. But then you'd feel bad for them because like Batman's
set them on fire. That guy in the beginning is the fire eater and Batman is literally sets him on fire.
To me, and you take the one character. See, they've had some dark stories like Dark Knight, Dark City in the comic books about the Riddler. It's a very dark story. Very interesting story. But it's hard to put it on film, but it is a very dark story with the Riddler. Joker, Two-Face, you could do dark stories. You take the one character that he should be a funny character, the Penguin. It's like, he's a Burgess Meredith was great as the Penguin. Animated series has
he's
Paul
Peter
Williams,
Lorre and M.
But it's just like,
basically,
it's
with
like,
a big nose.
You do that with the Penguin. See, I'm the type of person where I'll see dark sci-fi, like I love Blade Runner, I love all these Alien 1.
But you can't take something and make it dark.
I don't mind if you're making something dark, but don't make it dark just for the sake of making dark. And that's this is to key us in to the Nolan movies. The difference between I think the Nolan movies and the Batman. I know there's only been one of them so far, but the reason why I like the Dark Knight trilogy over the new Batman movie that came out is that he has a good balance, Nolan, where he knows when to be dark, he knows when to do a little lighthearted stuff or tell a few jokes, but it's also I feel like it's a good balance.
Yeah.
But I think like the Batman, the new one, it just was something that was dark that just for the sake of being dark. I don't like that. I like, it's like if you're gonna do dark stuff, fine, but don't just do it for the sake of being dark.
Just don't put the Riddler in leather. That's what we're saying, folks.
Yeah.
But real quick, we only got a couple of minutes. I'd have to very quickly. We'll go over the Nolan movies. I saw it in 2005. I remember hearing Nolan before he directed it. That was back when Chris Nolan was making one great film after another. He screened the movie Blade Runner for the whole cast and crew of Batman Begins. And he's like, that's what I want my movie to be like. So when I heard that, I'm like, oh, I think we're in for something. The movie came out real quick. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie. Very different for Batman, but really good. I love the character of Scarecrow. I love Ra's al Ghul.
June 15, 2005.
Yeah. Who, when Schumacher was still trying to make the dark Batman movie, they were trying to get Jeff Goldblum for the Scarecrow and Liam Neeson for Ra's al Ghul, even back then. And it took 10 more years, or 8 years, and we got Ra's al Ghul, and he was great. Is not Ra's al Ghul immortal?
And Cillian Murphy.
Oh, Cillian Murphy was great. Or Killian, one of those.
Killian
or Cillian. Tomatoes, mono. But then The Dark Knight, to me, is like a modern horror film, where the Joker's sort of like a ghost. He floats into the movie, and then he floats out of the movie. You can't stop him, because he's basically like a spirit of evil and a spirit of anarchy. And that was the thing that was so elemental about those films. The first film was fear. The second film was anarchy. And what was the third movie again? I think sorrow or something like that, where it was about like it had. Nolan once described it. I forgot what the third one is, and I feel stupid for not knowing. But then the third movie, okay. So, like as they,
it may not be as good as the other two, but it has its moments.
It has its moments.
As far as third movie, like a lot of people forget, third movies, especially third comic book movies. We were just talking about Batman Forever.
Yeah, Batman Forever.
But it's like, as far as third movies go, it's not bad.
X-Men 3.
You know, it's not bad. It's not. You know, I don't think it. You know, maybe gives that full.
You know what it is?
Feeling to it.
You
know,
don't
like a Return of the King, but then again,
I'd say. Batman
compare
Begins
those
is
two,
The Godfather. Batman Returns. I mean, not Batman Returns. Batman Begins is The Godfather. Batman The Dark Knight is Godfather 2. And I would say Dark Knight Rises is sort of like Night Falls on Manhattan or Prince of the City or something. It's not Godfather 3, but it's not a Goodfellas. It's not something really good. And, you know, I feel too like you watch Batman.
But I
Dark
felt like
Knight
you gave
Rises.
you something different.
The Dark Knight Rises
You know,
too. We liked more at the time. Like it was again. It was a good movie. I think the thing was
one thing about the
you
Nolan
just
film,
feel like when you finish watching it, I have enough credits to graduate Batman school. You don't feel like you have this big sweeping like the way you feel at the end of Return of the Jedi before they changed the digital younger Anakin. But when you saw Return of the Jedi, we so free. When you see the original Return of the Jedi in 1983, and they have the three ghosts, and it's the old guy. You just feel this real sweeping feeling, even though there's a lot of nonsense in the first half of that movie.
Yeah.
The second half of that movie, especially the end, is gangbusters. But like, or Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is a great third movie, or Army of Darkness, where you just feel this great feeling when it's over. At the end of Batman Dark Knight Rises, you feel satisfied, you feel pretty happy with the story, but it's nowhere near the first two. But final thoughts for Batman 89?
Final thoughts, it's like I said, it's more than just a movie because it opened the door to just a great lore and a great, you know, just I mean,
Happy
a
35.
great character. He's still my favorite comic book character. Before that, and I talk to people who are Marvel people, and it's like, I'll be honest with you, except for Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, I'll take any Marvel character over a DC character, like those surrounding characters. I'll take most of those Marvel characters over DC characters, but it's just that those are my favorite comic book characters, you know, Batman, Superman, and, you know, Wonder Woman. But, you know, I'm not against Marvel. I love Marvel stuff too. So anyway, but I just want to say that you know, it's movies are more than just like, you know, plotting and this and that. Yeah. It's about, creating, you know, world, the overwhelming world that you live in. And I feel like Tim Burton created that world in Batman 89. And Danny Elfman with the music. And I like to end it with Danny Elfman when you're done.
What am I going to say? Happy 35 is a great movie.
Happy 35.
It was fun when we were kids. Then there was that period where the sequels kind of killed your taste for it. And then you watch it again many, many years later, especially when I saw it with the orchestra earlier this year. And it's just the one movie and that one experience, and you forget the sequels and you forget everything later. Just focus on that one great experience. And that's what it is. And it's just a great movie. It's a lot of fun. It's gotten, you know, again, it gets diluted by the sequels the same way Aliens got diluted by the other sequels. And the first two Terminators got diluted by the crappy sequels. But, you know, if you just go back and watch that first movie again and try to see it with an audience, and if you can catch it with the orchestra, it's a little pricey, but you'll see some amazing characters there, too, dressed up. There was guys dressed up like Joker's gang with the jackets and everything. It's pretty cool.
That's brought in our minds, Clarence.
Is it Lawrence?
Lawrence. I'm sorry, I'm saying Clarence.
All right, so we got to finish. All right.
Okay, we're going to finish right now, but we'll finish with the orchestra. So we're going to do it with the finale again. That last shot is the iconic shot. Okay.
The whole thing?
Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman's
Danny
the best.
Elfman. Danny Elfman. Ding dong. Danny Elfman. Okay, we go.
All right. We promise another video sometime in the future, guys. Everybody, have a great summer. If we don't see you, I'm a little busy with the novel and work and family, but we'll try to do another one of these as quickly as we can. Thanks for everything.